Thank you for everything, Phoenix. But I guess it's time to say goodbye now. I wish you could stay a bit longer, so we could get to know each other outside of investigating and trials. Maybe we could see each other again someday. I'd like that.
I'd also love to see you take on Elements of Justice. Sounds like a ton of fun.
Oh, that's nice. Well, maybe I'll get around to it eventually.
Are you going to do a video about Elements of Justice, the unofficial sequel? And play the sequel trilogy before, some characters are from there.
Yes, I've already seen everything of EOJ so far, too. I have gone rabid for this series. I certainly wouldn't mind hearing your thoughts on that either.
Can you also try to review the Ace Attorney Elements of Justice series? It's like a continued version of the original Ace Attorney crossover.
Nice review. I hope you do Elements of Justice.
I do want to see you do a review of the Elements of Justice series. And honestly, if you do, I will be ecstatic.
Yes! Yes! Please cover MLP Elements of Justice. It's an incredible unofficial sequel series.
Are you going to review Elements of Justice, the fan-made sequel?
Please share your thoughts on Elements of Justice. It's a really good series.
Absolutely make a video or several on Elements of Justice, please.
Okay. Hello everybody, I'm Kate Cass. Welcome to our edition of Let's Talk About. Today, let's talk about the other My Little Pony Ace Attorney crossover, Elements of Justice. First things first though, thank you. My Turnabout Storm review was one of the most well-received videos I've ever made, and I appreciate all you taking the time to check it out and share your experiences with the series. I'm really bad at replying to comments, but just know that I read all of them. And the amount of people asking for an Elements of Justice review was almost overwhelming, but were so enthusiastic that I was more than happy to put this next review into the works. As I teased at the end of the Turnabout Storm review, Elements of Justice is long, consists of multiple cases instead of just one, and is still ongoing at the time of making this. So this isn't going to be a review of the entirety of Elements of Justice, just case one. But before we even do that, I think we need to take a look at how we got here. And to do that, we have to go back real quick to Turnabout Storm, because looking back, Turnabout Storm was going at a very interesting time for both franchises. It takes place during Season 1 of Friendship is Magic, and runs through the golden age of brony content, with new, ambitious, and varied projects releasing constantly. But these were the early days of the show itself, a simpler time. Meanwhile, the Ace Attorney franchise was in something of a transition period. Turnabout Storm takes place roughly between the second and third game, I think, but by the time it was made, the sequel series, Apollo Justice Ace Attorney, had been out for a couple of years. I can't say for certain, but I imagine part of the appeal of Turnabout Storm was seeing Phoenix Wright battling in court again, at a time where it was believed he'd never be behind the defense's bench again. Well, aside from the Professor Layton crossover, but that wasn't localized until Turnabout Storm concluded. Turnabout Storm debuted in October of 2011 and concluded exactly 2 years later in 2013. And let's just say, a lot changed in both series in that time. By the time Turnabout Storm concluded, it was revealed that Phoenix Wright would be stepping into the courtroom again in the new Ace Attorney game Dual Destinies, which coincidentally was released worldwide on the 3DS the day before the Turnabout Storm finale premiered. But this was 2013, and if you remember, Phoenix wasn't the only one who went through a big change. Yeah, this was right around the time Twilacorn happened. In retrospect, it's pretty wild how both of these series that have no relation outside of this one fan-made crossover were going through such big changes at the same time. It's the same way I felt as a Doctor Who's fan when Doctor Who's 50th anniversary and the season 4 premiere of MLP happened on the same day. With that in mind, Turnabout Storm feels almost like a reminiscence on a simpler time for both series. Between when the project began and when it ended, both franchises changed and evolved so much. But that just means there's even more to explore in a potential sequel. I couldn't find anything on if Neo Artemis was ever asked if there'd be a sequel to Turnabout Storm, but I wouldn't be shocked if their answer was a resounding no. After Turnabout Storm ended, some unofficial continuations did pop up, mainly on fanfiction. Then, in May of 2016, a very special announcement was made. of Justice, a spiritual sequel series to Turnabout Storm, was announced and put into development by an artist known as the Aljaves. Quick addendum here. Aljaves is no longer involved with Elements of Justice, departing under less than ideal circumstances. However, this happened between cases 2 and 3, so I'll talk a bit more about what happened when I eventually make a video on case 3. This is just to let you know that I am aware of the situation, but I'll still be referring to Aljaves as the creator. Going back to the trailer, I was so excited when I saw this. It seemed like exactly what people wanted out of a Turnabout Storm sequel. Older Phoenix, Princess Twilight, bringing Ace Attorney's sequel cast, a wider cast of MLP characters included in the story, and most importantly, the scale. Not only would there be more characters this time, but they were featuring new game mechanics in the story that had been added in the Ace Attorney sequel trilogy, and the biggest reveal of all, this would be a full 5-case project. This wasn't just going to be a worthy sequel to Turnabout Storm, it was promising to be bigger than it in every possible way. Now, admittedly, the project did limp along for a while. I was following updates on Elements of Justice pretty closely, and there were constant updates about how it's still gonna happen, but something was causing a delay. I think eventually Aljays realized he couldn't juggle every aspect of this multi-video, long-form storyline, production-heavy fan project by himself, so a team was assembled, and that's when things really kicked into gear. Finally, the first part of Elements of Justice premiered in June of 2019, a little over 3 years after the trailer dropped. Like I said, there were a lot of delays. But now, after all that build-up, let's see if the wait was worth it by diving right into the first case of Elements of Justice, Turnabout Theater. Another murder has been committed in Equestria, and Twilight decides once again to summon her friendly ace attorney, Phoenix Wright, to help. However, his proteges, Apollo of Justice and Athena Sykes, and his daughter Trucy, are caught in the spell as well and are whisked away to Equestria together. Humans and ponies must work together to discover the truth behind this grisly murder and prove the accused pony's innocence. So, when it comes to the premise, I think this is the most likely place to go for a Turnabout Storm sequel, to reunite the pair after so much has changed for both of them. The idea of them teaming up again is so exciting that, like last time, they cut right to the chase and transport Phoenix and the others with only a very short intro to build it up. Although there's this strange moment where Phoenix doesn't recognize Twilight. I don't know if this is foreshadowing a future plot point, or to show how much time has passed, or Phoenix getting another bout of amnesia, but it's a little weird. But he remembers her pretty quickly, so whatever. The biggest draw for this project, though, is probably bringing in the new characters from Ace Attorney. Admittedly, I haven't gotten a chance to play the sequel trilogy, but I'll hopefully fix that soon, so I don't have a deep knowledge on Apollo, Athena, or Trucy, but I know a bit about all three of them. So I can't speak to them in depth, at least not yet, and there might be some specific references they make that I miss, but I have heard from people who have played those games that Elements of Justice does a really good job incorporating this group. One of the things that's so fun about bringing in new human characters is getting some fresh new eyes on the world of Equestria and the ponies who live there. Phoenix has been here before, he knows how this place works, but these guys sure don't. That's what adds a lot of the humor and charm in this first case, and keeps Phoenix in the role of knowledgeable mentor to the next generation. But even though Phoenix is more mature and experienced, and even knows his way around Equestria better, he still has the same amount of dry, annoyed remarks at practically everything around him, and it's the best.
I, actually wanted to be a stage actor myself.
You? Trust me, you wouldn't last a day in the business, I can tell.
Yeah, thanks for the advice on a career choice I gave up on nearly 15 years ago.
Plus, with 3 of them, we get a variety of reactions to Equestria and the other ponies. Trucy's interactions are the most fun to me. Having a magician in a world filled with real magic is so much fun. It could have led to Trucy feeling inadequate, but she's such a good magician that even the unicorns are impressed with her tricks. And that's so delightful to me. That said, if Twilight is able to teach Trucy real, genuine magic even for a moment by the time the series ends, that would be amazing. Athena seems to love Equestria, loving the cities and getting along well with the ponies, and Apollo wants to go home. He is by far the most annoyed to be in this place, acting like that one friend in the group who doesn't care about My Little Pony, but has to constantly be around conversations about it. But even then, he can't help but be a bit curious. At one point, Apollo questions how Equestria's legal system evolves when there's not much crime. So as much as he's frustrated by this place, he still wants to understand it a bit. But Apollo and Athena are equally baffled by Pinkie Pie, as expected. To borrow an old meme,
"It's Pinkie Pie, don't question it."
It's a really good variety and makes it so all three of them aren't just saying the same thing over and over to feel included. This first case is Phoenix's, but the others do contribute their own points of view and assist in the investigation where they can. But speaking of variety, that's something I wish I could say about the dialogue. It's not bad, just a bit rough. And repetitive. So repetitive. Particularly in the very first video. Comments in the dialogue get repeated multiple times even when just two characters are in the conversation, and segues into different points of conversation could definitely be smoother. Despite being a video series, Elements of Justice does qualify as fan fiction, and this is a common problem in fan fiction, but one that can be alleviated with practice. The dialogue and references will feel much more organic in future parts, but it can get a bit tiring or sound unnatural in Turnabout Theater. Also, with all this text to type out, there's bound to be some errors. Turnabout Storm had its fair share of those, but Turnabout Theater has a particularly noteworthy one. When they go to the theater to investigate the scene of the crime and head up to the catwalk above, the location text reads,
King, illegal, forest, true pig, wild, kill in it is.
What? Elements of Justice has a decently sized fan community, and this was perhaps its first big meme. But delivering those lines are a pretty great group of voice actors. Now, Turnabout Theater took about 1.5 years to complete, and that means there are some changing voice actors. So for this video, we're just gonna focus on 2, and we'll feature some other actors in future videos. And I feel the most important one to talk about for this case is Phoenix Wright. Some of you might know that originally Gold Crow was slated to reprise his role for this project, but had to drop out. Coming in to replace him was Julius Gem. And I will admit, it took some getting used to for me. Long stretches of dialogue seem to be the weak part, at least for this first case, but he does a great job delivering the exacerbated remarks both in and out of his head. He's very funny.
I wonder if I should start my own show here. I think I'd make good money over here.
Trust me, Trucy, the money over here isn't worth anything in our world.
I've never been so close to a sports car in my life.
I want to stress that Julius Gem had an impossible act to follow. Gold Crow was the gold standard for so many, but so far he's done an amazing job rising to the challenge, and he'll only get better from here. I saw a lot of comments early on of people going, "Oh, I miss Gold Crow," whenever he spoke. And guys, please don't do that, that's unhelpful. Julius stepped in to fill the most important role in the series, and he clearly loves the project a lot. This first outing has its faults, but he's truly making the role his own, and I commend him for that. Speaking of making a role his own, guess who's back?
The defense is ready. Your Honor!
Oh, I knew you'd be surprised to see me, Mr. Wright.
Yeah, the judge is back to preside over the cases, but if you're a fan of Daughter of Discord, which I suspect at least some of you who watch my videos are, his new voice might sound familiar to you.
What? What's happening? Someone please enlighten me so that I can be shocked too.
In Elements of Justice, the judge is played by none other than the Wilstonator. I could put a paragraph of analysis here, but I don't think I need to. If you know either of these two at all, you know how that sounds like a match made in heaven. And it is. I won't be highlighting anyone else by name right now, but the rest of the cast is great. There are a lot of characters in just this first case, and there really isn't a bad performance to be had here, which is impressive. Almost as impressive as the visual, sweet Celestia what a glow up. How much more skilled people online have gotten at digital artwork and animation in the years between Turnabout Storm and Elements of Justice really shows here. All the backgrounds are original artwork, and they're so good most of them could be mistaken for show assets. The courtroom background has been updated to fit the style of Dual Destinies, with an equestrian coat of paint, of course. They updated the Ace Attorney graphics to match the sequel trilogy better, and the models for the ponies look absolutely incredible. I was especially taken aback by how cool the courtroom animations are. Twilight's objection moments in particular are just awesome. The art direction even gets better in just this first case. There's an original character in this case, his name is Playwright. This is how he looked in part 1, and here's how he looks in part 2. There's also reenactment artwork to go along with the testimonies, and even a couple of fully animated cutscenes. A far cry from the dark, blurry, GBA-inspired animation from episode 1 of Turnabout Storm. I was really impressed with the effort and care put into bringing this whole thing to life. Right away, the dedication and hard work of the team behind this shows, and the standards they set for themselves in just this first part shows the promise in installments to come. The only part that's kind of questionable visually to me is the Ace Attorney characters. The 3D models from the 3DS game seem to have been modified to make them look more like the original trilogy sprites, which makes sense. I'm not even really sure how you'd use 3D rigs in a fan-made project like this. This was probably way easier to work with, but they do seem kind of out of focus, and Phoenix's scale is all off in the courtroom scenes. But again, I think they did the best they could, and it got the job done here. However, the most important thing about this project is, of course, the case and the trial. And there's quite a bit I want to dive into here, so like with my Turnabout Storm review, we're going to split the discussion into parts, which I will designate with time codes in the description. From here on, I'll be looking more into the case, but just stuff I would consider minor spoilers. If you don't want to be spoiled, but still want to know if you should check out Elements of Justice, yeah, I'd say so. If you enjoyed Turnabout Storm and really want to see more stuff like that, this is a solid follow-up. But if you're curious about the case, don't worry. You can keep watching, and I'll give another warning when we get into major spoilers. Alright, warnings out of the way. Let's get into it. So, why did Twilight need to summon Phoenix again? Well, because a costume designer pony was killed when he was hung from the rafters of a live theater performance of Henny of the Hills. Yeah, that's more, grim than I was expecting, but it definitely sets the scene that the sequel isn't the same thing again. And hey, Henny of the Hills, that's a cute callback. You guys remember that one, right? Good times. Speaking of Rarity Takes Manhattan, the defendant is Coco Pamel, which I thought was a pretty unique choice. It's not one of the main six again, it's one of their new friends. Some pony they care about, but Phoenix doesn't know personally. So he's just gotta believe in her like he would any other client. And that's exactly what he does, despite whatever doubts might crop up.
My word! Could someone who looks so adorable really be so cruel?
There is a solid case in both franchises to say yes. But this is basically the tutorial case. They're not going to have a defendant actually be guilty here. I joke, but Coco was one of the sweetest, purest ponies Friendship is Magic ever created. She wouldn't hurt a horsefly. So it's up to Phoenix and Twilight to prove that. In a fun bit of updated lore, Twilight is able to stand in court alongside Phoenix without special permission like last time. As a princess, Twilight is not only seen as qualified to stand in court, but required to as part of her royal training, to show an in-depth understanding of Equestria's laws and the ability to uphold them. I found this to be a great addition to the world and a way to give the royalty more responsibility. It also sets up who the prosecutor will be. Unlike Turnabout Storm, each case in Elements of Justice features a different prosecutor. For this tutorial case, we need someone who's egotistical, condescending, but ultimately pathetic at performing their job.
Prince Blueblood, correct?
Everyone's least favorite character, Prince Blueblood. Honestly, I'm kind of sad they never did more with him in the show, especially considering he's one of the go-to jerks when you need a jerk in fanworks. But said fanworks have had a lot of fun with the little we got in the show, and having him be the prosecutor and first boss of Elements of Justice is no exception. He's pretentious, condescending, claims credit when someone else comes up with a clever solution to a contradiction in court, and is absolutely heinous to Coco. In other words, he's perfectly in character for Prince Blueblood and fits right in as an Ace Attorney prosecutor. Although 5 years later, this glaring animation still haunts my nightmares. It is pretty fun to see him boasting his unearned confidence and then see him quiver the second his theories are broken apart. It's oddly satisfying to watch, especially when Phoenix or Twilight get the chance to put him in his place.
We should try to find out if any of them have any connection to any pony directly involved in this case.
Who do you think you are, ordering me around like that?
She is a princess, and unlike you, she earned her royal title. When it comes to the case, Part 1 is an investigation segment discussing the case, and Parts 2 and 3 focus on the trial. The trial is well thought out, with the discussions and cross-examinations feeling true to an Ace Attorney game. Even the irrelevant tangents and how Phoenix will press a witness after each section of testimony to get more information. It can drag a bit, but so can certain Ace Attorney cases, so as long as it feels true to the franchise, it works for me. There were times where I was trying to put pieces together along with our heroes, where they have to really squeeze out information and search for the slightest contradiction to help their defense. Just like in Ace Attorney game, remembering the smallest of comments is rewarding when it returns to help prove a point. There are some really fun bits of evidence gathered in this case too, like hoof prints caused by fluorescent paint, which offers some great gotcha moments revealing what is or isn't covered in paint, as well as tracking traces of glitter among the suspects and at the crime scene. Using glitter as a crucial piece of evidence is kind of hilarious to me. That stuff gets everywhere and it never comes off. It's not as in tune with the specific workings and magic of Equestria as the Turnabout Storm case, now called the TS5 incident by the way, cute, but it does fit the specific environment of the case, and I'm already kind of a sucker for murder cases that happen in theatrical settings. I just think it's a fun backdrop for this kind of thing. A lot of this case involves that setting. A good amount of the first half of part 3 is spent trying to piece together where exactly everyone was in between all the half-truths and hazy recollections that are told during testimonies. It can get pretty complicated, and I was impressed at how they kept track of all this from a writing standpoint. I don't think I could write an Ace Attorney trial, there are too many moving parts. So, was Coco just in the wrong place at the wrong time? Well, kind of, but also they do find a bit of a motive. The victim, overall concept, had hired Coco as an assistant in his costume designing. The two started to grow close working together. Very close, in fact. By the time the murder happened, they were lovers living together. Which not only makes the murder itself more tragic, because it's someone Coco really loved and cared about, but in the eyes of our Palomino prosecutor, it gives her a motive. Overall concept was a highly sought after, revered, and well-off designer, and if something were to happen to him, Coco would inherit all of his assets and designs. But anyone who knows Coco Pamel knows there's some pony out there who would perhaps want to destroy her life and reputation.
You!
Huh?
I mean, we were all thinking it, right? She didn't even have to show up. I know that as soon as Coco was revealed as the defendant, I suspected Surrey Polo Mare. And here's where we're going to get into major spoilers. So if you don't want to hear about how the trial resolves, what really happened at the theater, or some deeper character analysis, this is your chance to back out. Okay, yeah, I was suspecting Surrey from the start. In fact, when part 2 came out, I was shocked to realize that it was almost over and we hadn't gotten to Surrey yet. Then again, I also was not expecting the tutorial case to go on for 3 full episodes. She's already a shitty pony to begin with, and Turnabout Theater actually plays on her established history from the show of stealing from fellow designers to cast suspicion on her. Once they finally do get her on the stand though, she fights back pretty intensely with what I can only describe as mean girl energy. She antagonizes Phoenix, intimidates the judge, and even talks down to Blue Blood, the pony who's supposed to protect her innocence. And here, I find myself torn. On the one hoof, it's awesome to hear someone talk to Blue Blood like that, but on the other, if I root for this, I have to root for Surrey, and I really don't want to do that. So I think I'm gonna sweat in the corner like Phoenix does. That seems like the best option. Tensions are already pretty high for the first trial. While there are laughs and ridiculous propositions littered throughout, that's felt the entire time. But this is where the premise of Elements of Justice really shines in my opinion, because everyone here is more mature than they were the last time. Twilight and Phoenix especially have grown so much in the time since their last trial together, and it shows. Twilight has her moments of panic and stress, but is also much more cool-headed and capable, possibly because the defendant isn't one of her best friends this time, but I like to think it's because she's grown. She even passes on her calming breathing technique to Phoenix at a stressful point in the trial, which is really sweet, but also funny because when Twilight mentions where she learned that, Phoenix is just as bewildered by Cadence and Shining Armor's existence as the rest of us were.
Wait, your sister-in-law? You have a sibling? And there's another princess?
That's not important right now, Phoenix.
Hello, I am a very important character who has just been introduced, and I'm marrying another very important character who has just been introduced, who is also a princess, and I'm the older brother of the main protagonist. I literally have no idea who you people are.
The judge is more vocal on objecting to the disrespectful behavior of Blue Blood and the witness. He stands up for Phoenix when Blue Blood makes a serious accusation against him too. The judge has way more of a spine this time. I like it.
Now sit back and listen so the truth doesn't escape those worn-out ears of yours.
Yes, ma'am.
Never mind. Although I do love how exacerbated the judge is that someone is lying in his court. Like, that doesn't happen in literally every trial he oversees. This level of dignity and respect for the proceedings gets to Playwright as well. Playwright's goal to strive for perfection comes off as pompous right from his introduction, but eventually it leads to him speaking up against the false perfection Blue Blood is trying to create by withholding crucial facts in his statement. It shows a level of integrity that I wasn't expecting, but very much appreciate. Even Coco, the defendant in this case, the one who lost her special sun pony in such a tragic way and is being framed for the crime, stands up to do what's right for some pony that many would say does not deserve that. Suri. When Suri's lies on the events are broken down one by one, it seems to play out like most would have expected it to. Phoenix puts all the pieces together, Suri has a classic caught-in-the-act murderer breakdown, toss the confetti, and let's all go to Pinkie Pie's party to celebrate. Yet, when that happens, we're only halfway through this final part. So during the incident, Coco was knocked unconscious, and because of that, she couldn't remember exactly what happened that night. The big turning point in the trial comes when she regains her memories of what happened on the catwalk where overall concept died, and decides to help clear Suri's name. Even after everything Suri did to Coco, she's the bigger pony by helping her in her time of need, attempting to prove Suri's philosophy that it's every pony for themselves wrong. As an aside, I kinda like how Suri isn't much different from her canon counterpart. There's no reveal of a past wrongdoing or tragic backstory that made her who she is. What matters more is taking the opportunity to break down her beliefs and work on building better ones. It's the kind of story approach that you hope could inspire people to emulate it in their own lives. At the center of all these revelations is Phoenix Wright. This is a very interesting reintroduction, not just of Phoenix being back in Equestria, but after so much time has passed. It's been 8 years for Phoenix since Turnabout Storm, and while he's still the same bleeding heart, sarcastic, somewhat put upon defense attorney he was all those years ago, he's also grown quite a bit. I really like just how mature and composed Phoenix is at points during this case. He still holds the same beliefs, the faith between an attorney and their client, and standing for the truth no matter what, but it's been fine-tuned with age and experience. Towards the end of the trial, he stays completely silent and lets everyone else try to piece together the events until he interjects just in time to remove any and all doubt, reaching out to whatever empathy Suri has after Coco stood up to protect her to help him prove her innocence. And luckily, it works. Don't get me wrong, I love exacerbated put upon Phoenix Wright rookie defense attorney, but this just highlights something I really love in next generation stories. Seeing characters you love evolve into the best versions of themselves, that everything they went through left an impact and changed them. It's something I really look forward to seeing more of when I play the sequel trilogy for myself, and I adore the portrayal of it in Turnabout Theater. Phoenix's approach eventually leads to the discovery that Suri didn't commit the crime either. She did steal some special fabric from him, and out of fear that Coco would accuse her of killing him, she framed her for a murder, but Suri never touched Overall. He was already dead by the time she got up to the catwalk. Everyone else is shocked to hear this, but Phoenix just stands there almost melancholy, because like the veteran attorney he is, he knows the truth, and as painful as it is, he brings it to light. Overall concept was not murdered. He committed suicide. It's pretty dark and shocking revelation, and one I certainly didn't see coming. Pretty much solidifying that this series is going to go to much more dramatic places, and this is just the beginning. And I know that's a bit of an anticlimactic way to discuss how this whole case resolves, but I mean, like, a unicorn committed suicide. What do you want me to say? I'm kind of stunned into silence here. Case 1 ends on an interesting note. While there is a sense of hope and prosperity, as the ones involved vow to make their work and lives better to make something come from this tragedy, the mystery behind Overall's actions and Suri's refusal to say what mysterious pony told her about the fabric that started all this in the first place still leaves an air of uncertainty to the whole thing, missing pieces in the mystery that will hopefully be discovered in future stories. On top of that, Phoenix realizes how strange it is that Twilight summoned him again to take the case when she's now more than capable of handling on her own as a princess. And what kind of answer does Phoenix get to his question?
If you appear so capable of taking on a case, why did you feel the need to summon me?
Well, story for another time, I suppose. That's case 1 of Elements of Justice. Overall, Turnabout Theater is a very solid start to Elements of Justice. It has quite a bit of fun introducing and reacquainting all these characters with each other, and presenting some of the potential in a sequel to this beloved fan-made crossover. The performances definitely have room to grow, but everyone does a good job from the start. The artwork and overall visuals show just how much more impressive pony projects have gotten since Turnabout Storm's day. The trial has a steady progression with well thought out twists, and there are some truly shocking moments, more than I expected from the first case. But you can definitely tell that this is a first outing, with some of the classic rough bits around the edges more ambitious projects like this have. No matter how many people are looking it over, some stuff is going to get through the cracks. For every funny moment, there's an awkward or dull one, and for every powerful or sentimental scene, there's some of the most stilted and repetitive dialogue I've ever heard in my life, or scenes that really drag on. And when your project's total runtime is over 5 hours, those are the kinds of things you need to polish to make sure viewers don't get bored. Luckily though, a lot of the critiques I have towards this project are addressed in future cases. Keep in mind this is just a review of Turnabout Theater, and despite what faults it might have, it is an incredibly impressive case that shows what the EOJ team can bring to the table. The team involved here clearly loved Turnabout Storm, reveling in the idea of being its honorary successor and upholding its legacy with respect. Neo Artemis even gave the project their blessing. It doesn't even matter what I say, that's the highest honor they could get. Elements of Justice is already a pretty impressive project, but this first case shows that there's definitely room for it to improve. And we'll see much more of that improvement in Case 2, Crusading for a Turnabout. Thanks for watching everyone, definitely let me know what you thought of Elements of Justice in the comments below. That's why the series is called Let's Talk About. And thank you to everyone who provided their voices for the intro of this video. That was so kind of all of you. Their names will be listed in the credits. If you see them in the comments section, say hi. They all did a good job. And of course, a very special thanks to my patrons who help support my content, including Chelsea A. Crandall, David L. Sproul, Jigs Productions, and Wait in the Wings. If you'd like to join these fine people in supporting my content while getting cool exclusive perks, you can check out my Patreon page at the link in the description, as well as my other social media if you'd like to check any of those. Thank you so much again for watching, and I will see you guys next time.